Kingdom, 2 Russian bombers were reported flying in around the UK airspace. Some people in the local town of Bodmin have reported seeing one of these bombers above the town centre and near the community college. On the contrary, the Minister of Defence, Michael Fallon, has stated that the Russian bombers weren't in the UK airspace at all, but were instead in neutral airspace. What they were doing there, however, has not been confirmed. Local woman Sue Bamford has claimed to see one of the 2 bombers whilst having a driving lesson from Bodmin. This is the footage from our interview. Hi, I'm Lachlan and this is Jake, and we're reporting from the BBC School Report.
Okay, so recently we've been made aware that on the 19th of February you saw what you described as Russian bombers. Can you describe them to us?
Yes, yes, I was around St Morgan, St Column having a driving lesson. I wasn't driving at the time that I saw the bombers, but my friend and I, who's the driving instructor, were tootling around one of the big roundabouts. We saw this enormous, great big, well, looks like a sort of flying tank, and we went, wow, that's a really unusual aircraft. And it was doing loops, so we thought that was interesting, and we went off and I took over doing a bit of a driving lesson. And then later when we swapped back, it's about 12:30, when we swapped back and she was driving again, we saw another aircraft that was really unusual, but this one was really long and skinny with swept back wings, so it didn't look like EasyJet, which fly into Nuki a lot, or Ryanair, the little ones, and it didn't look like a jumbo jet. It was this little skinny thing, and we were laughing because my friend is short and chunky and I'm tall and skinny, so we went, oh, we've had your plane and now we've got my plane. And we just thought it was really weird that we saw 2 really unusual planes on the same day doing loops, but the long thin one was going along St Morgan Valley and really low, and both of the planes had been really low, so we weren't kind of going, what's that? It was a, what's that? And they were unusually low. And we thought nothing of it. I went home, had a cup of tea, we talked about, we just had an and then Claire went home, la la la, and the next day didn't really pay any attention to the news because they were saying, oh, Russian bombers off of Cornish coast. And then my friend phoned me and went, have you actually seen the planes? Have you actually looked at what these things were supposed to look at? So I went online and had a look. It was like, that's what we saw. We saw them over UK airspace, and we were just completely freaking out because we've just seen a plane that wasn't supposed to be where the government told it was. So I just went on Facebook and went, Prime Minister's just lied to me. And then I phoned the Guardian news desk to go, I'm sorry, but they were in UK airspace. And they phoned back and they did a little interview and they stuck it up on their page, and then Cornish papers phoned and the Today programme phoned, and then Twitter started going that she's a middle-aged lunatic, because it goes Bodmin woman 45, and I just start looking like a complete nutball.
So there's been quite a lot of debate recently from the Minister of Defence, Michael Fallon, who said that bombers weren't in UK airspace whatsoever. What would you say in reply to that? Do you have an opinion?
I do have an opinion. I think it is far safer to discredit one crazy woman from Bodmin than to actually say, yes, they were in UK airspace, because then we would have to respond. And responding could lead to very bad things.
Do you think Michael Fallon would lie? If so, why?
Yes, of course he would lie. Yes, absolutely, for the reasons I just gave. And why not? You've got to protect national interest far more than saying one of your citizens saw something they weren't supposed to see and wasn't there. And the Russians are known for doing these stealth, low-level flights. Later on in the news, there was some stuff about bombers off the coast of Plymouth. And if you can see something off the coast of Plymouth, that's definitely in UK airspace. But that was apparently about 7 in the evening. So the Today programme said, well, your times don't match with the times of this other stuff in Plymouth, so maybe you're just a bit nut and making it up, but I know what I saw.
Do you think that there's a threat of Russia attacking the UK? Because there's been many statements from the Ministry of Defence saying that bombers were loaded with inactive nuclear missiles.
I think, I don't know if they're going to attack us, but I think Putin does like to poke people so that he can look important when everything gets all wound up. And it might be a distraction from the rest of what's going on in the Ukraine. And I'm sure we do it to them. I'm sure we've got nuclear submarines going, hi, and Putin around off off the coast of where they shouldn't be. I'm sure we test each other's defences all the time, only we're just not supposed to see it.
So it's sort of like an intimidation tactic.
I think so, yeah. I think there's, in the 19th century they called it the Great Game, and we had people riding through Asia on horseback gathering information, and we ended up in the Crimea and all kinds of stuff like that. And we've been having trouble in Afghanistan for 200 years. So I'm sure we do this to each other, even our allies, all the time.
So last question, are you worried?
No more than normal. Do I think it's any different than it ever was? No, I just think I've been accidentally party to knowing that my Prime Minister lied to me personally, which is kind of weird, I know he lies all the time about stuff. Austerity, banking, Swiss scandals, tax evasion, la-di-la-la, but it's kind of weird to have him personally say that I didn't see what I saw.
So thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
Really informative. Thank you. Recent reports by the Ministry of Defence also states that the Tu-95 bombers were armed with nuclear missiles. Whilst the missiles were not armed nor correctly assembled, there has been an outcry by local Cornish people to improve Britain's military status. Prime Minister David Cameron rivaled this opinion, however, by saying that Putin is just trying to prove some point, and then there's no reason to be concerned. With the diversity of opinions, we may never know whether the bombers were or weren't in our airspace. For now, all we can do is speculate.
Hello and welcome to BBC News Report. Smoking is a primary cause of preventable illness and premature death, accounting for approximately 100,000 deaths a year in the United Kingdom. 4% of children aged 11 to 15 in England smoke regularly, at least one cigarette per week. On average, regular child smokers in England smoke 36 cigarettes per week. The Liskeard and South East Cornwall Breathers Group provides support, information exchange and social activities for people who suffer from heart problems and lung problems. It also raises awareness of these problems brought on by smoking by giving talks in schools and colleges across Cornwall. We now go to our correspondents Navina and Amber, who interviewed the Breathers Club.
I'm here with the Breathers.
Hello, my name's Joe. I'm 64. I used to smoke 40 cigarettes a day, and I'm delighted to get this opportunity to speak to the school project here.
I'm Mick Elliott, I'm from the Breathers, and I'm 74, and I've been smoking a long time too. And we enjoy coming to school to talk to the students and let them know what the conditions of smoking happens to them, and hopefully they'll listen and never smoke. Okay.
At a young age, I would say I started to smoke at the age of 11. Why I started to smoke, and we've been asked this a number of times, is because I would say it might be maybe peer or maybe my friends used to smoke, so I joined the gang. We thought it was good for us.
And I started smoking just after I was 10, about 10 and a half. And in them days, everybody was told it was good for us. We was allowed to go into a shop on the way to school and for 2p buy a cigarette and a match on the way to school and do the same thing coming back. Nobody'd stop us. And it was good. And I started smoking because at that age I wanted to be like my dad, and I looked up to my dad, and unfortunately he smoked, so that's where I got it from. Okay?
When did you stop smoking?
I stopped smoking on the day I went to hospital with a heart attack, which I didn't know that I had. And the doctor there says it's either you or the cigarettes. So it wasn't, I had no option, but I stopped smoking.
What is Breathers all about?
The Breathers is ex-people who used to smoke. And one of the things that stands out in my head, it shows you how bad it is. We're just ex-smokers with an illness called COPD, chronic obstructive
pulmonary disease.
That's the word I've stuck on. And it's very, very knowledgeable, and you share information with each other, the socialisation that helps a lot of people.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Now back to the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you tell us a little bit about like Road to Rio and what it is?
Cool. So Road to Rio. So basically, and Paralympic fencing. We've just lost our money as a sport. So I used to be funded by the government, and now because I've lost that, I have to find all my own funding and all my own money to go to all these senior World Cups around the world, and each competition can cost anywhere from €1,000, anything to €3,000. So it's quite a lot of money. So all these Road to Rios, we've been putting on shows in school to just try and raise enough money to get me to the next World Cup, really.
Oh, okay. How long have you been doing this for?
Well, before I used to be a county swimmer, and then my condition got worse, hence why I had to change to Paralympic fencing. But I started about 2 years ago now, so not too long.
If it's okay, do you think you could talk about your condition? Like
Yeah, sure. I suffer from a few conditions. My main one is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. So it makes me hypermobile and causes chronic pain. Something else called autonomic dysfunction, which affects my central nervous system. Fibromyalgia, which affects all my muscles. Also, I've got a very mild CP, which is cerebral palsy. So that's brain damage. Also, I've had a few small strokes now as well, and I'm being tested on more, or I'm having more genetic testing for more conditions. So it's getting quite busy.
Okay, so does that like make your training hard?
Yeah, I think a lot because my condition is so invisible, as I'm intermittently out of a wheelchair because of the pain and the condition. Because I suffer with pain every day, I think it can affect my training much harder from someone else who's much more able-bodied.
So how much do you train like in a week?
I try and train every day, but my training's down in Truro, so it's quite hard. But every day I do S&C work. So that's just focus on specific muscles. And then on top of that, I train every day of the week. And then every other weekend I have to travel to Stoke Mandeville, so it's up in Buckinghamshire, or Northampton, or Milton Keynes for my GB training.
Wow.
Pretty busy.
So like, is your family and your friends like really supportive with
Yeah,
what you do?
yeah, definitely. Also my little sister, she's also in the development of GB squad as well, doing the sport. So she's working her way up. So it's me and my sister like now going to travel the world together, so that'll be pretty cool. And then obviously my mum has to be the driver. But yeah, and then all my friends, like especially for the Road to Rios, they've really helped.
Could you tell us like about your concerts and stuff that you?
We've only put on 2 Road to Rios at the minute, so they've been pretty successful so far. The second Road to Rio we've done, we got someone off the BBC Voice, and then also I'm putting on another show at Eden Project, and I'm in talks with Clean Bandit at the minute to try and play for free, so hopefully that could be pretty good. So yeah, so that's the next step that I'm doing, but hopefully soon, because of our recent achievements in the sport, we may be getting our funding back.
Thanks very much, Shaylin.